Hello, this is Liza Simpson. I'm the president of CSM Publishing. I want to thank you for watching this very special video. Today we're continuing with the second part of an interview between Liza Simpson, who is my niece and is the daughter of John and Sarah Simpson. She's a student at Faith Academy in Mobile, Alabama, and she is interviewing my dad, her grandfather, Charles Simpson. In the last installment, they talked about how God is faithful in times of adversity. Today, we're going to hear a little bit more from my father as he talks with Liza about his childhood, what things were like growing up, some of the unique things that he and his generation have faced. And Liza's going to ask a number of very insightful questions. I hope you'll watch, I hope you'll enjoy, and share this with friends and family. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charles Simpson, and I'm here with my granddaughter Liza, and we're going to talk about heritage a little bit, and I hope that it'll be a blessing to you. Good to have you, Liza.
I'm glad to be here. I'd like to ask you about what was your house like when you were growing up?
Well, I lived in more than one house, but my earliest house was a homemade house trailer that my uncles, we lived in the bayous and the swamps of Louisiana, and my father was a missionary among French-speaking people, and his wife, my mother, her parents and uncles made a trailer, and it was a one-room house trailer, and the first 4 years of my life we lived in that. And I remember, because it was so different than the rest of my life, then we lived in an apartment in a church in New Orleans, which I didn't care for, living in the basement of a church. And then we moved into a house next to the church when my father moved to Alabama. And it was like a lot of churches then, they had a house next door for the pastor. And they called it the pastorium, which I always said was kind of like an aquarium, but you keep pastors in it because everybody knew if you were home or what was going on. But we didn't have air conditioning. And of course, South Alabama gets hot. And we had a big attic fan up in the roof, up in the ceiling, and we'd leave the windows open at night, and it would suck in everything. I mean, it was a 42-inch fan, and I had allergies, and I loved being there. It was not next to the church, but I loved being in the community. But it was a little uncomfortable at times, but we made it quite well, thank goodness.
Did you have AC in your first house?
Did we have air conditioning?
Air conditioning.
No. No. Now, after I got married, well, after I moved away from there, yes, we had, well, no, the first house we had didn't have air conditioning. It had fans. It wasn't until, I don't know, 1964, I guess, that we had air conditioning. We used attic fans, and you heard everything outside, you know, the windows would be up, and it was different. It's a blessing to have air conditioning.
Yes, sir. What did you do for fun as a teen?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm not going to tell you everything I did, because I got in trouble a few times. But I had a bicycle, and we built, we climbed trees. We built, quote, a clubhouse. You know, we were creative, and of course worked. What you didn't have to say, did you? And we went in the woods, and I was a Boy Scout, and we did camping trips. I learned how to cook. I said I learned how to cook. And I had a merit badge in cooking, and we swam. I had a merit badge for swimming. And those were fun. Sometimes we got into mischief, but I'm not going to plant any seeds in your mind.
Did you play any sports?
I love football. Now I played baseball. I used to pitch, and I played basketball. Just to stay in shape. I wasn't that good, wasn't that fast, certainly wasn't tall, but I loved football. And you know, we had a good coach. We won a couple of championships. In fact, 3 times when I was in high school. And I played on the first team when I was a sophomore. Now you know something about that because you played lacrosse,
Yes,
and
sir.
you're the youngest and smallest one out there, and you're one of the best players.
Thank
So you can be, if you commit yourself, you can be what you need to be and want to be. And I like sports, but we had a coach that made us work. And you know, if you're going to be a good lacrosse player, you got to work.
Yes, sir.
You got to run, and you got to risk getting hit with the stick. And but I watched you guard girls at 6 feet tall, and you did a good job. I love to watch you play, and you're quick. You're fast. I'm telling you, you'd be around the world before I got my shoes on. That's wonderful. But I learned so much, and my coach was a disciplinarian. And a lot of people don't like discipline. If you do something to discipline, they get all upset and feel like, well, I'm not going to do it, I'm quitting or whatever. But I wanted to play. And I don't care what he said or what happened, I wanted to play. And so I started playing when I was a sophomore, and I played guard. Now, you don't know much about football,
Yes, sir.
but guard is not a glamour position. Guards don't score goals like in lacrosse. Guards don't run the ball, guards don't pass the ball, guards don't catch the ball. All guards do is block. And we used to play both offense and defense, so I both blocked and tackled, and but I loved it. And I learned that, and he taught me some techniques that helped me do it better. And I learned so many things from playing sports. And I learned that life's not always easy. And it's not all cheers. But I learned there's a reward to winning and getting better. And getting better is not easy. You have to strive. And we all need to get better, not just in sports, but we need to grow in our lives. But I'm proud of you. And I love to watch you play. And when things get back to normal, if they ever do, at least being able to play sports again, I want to watch you play. I think you do well, and I think you're going to go far.
Thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome. Now, what do you like about sports?
I like the teamwork. I don't like to have to work alone. I like being able to work in a group.
That's great. That is so, you see, I was just talking about that a few minutes ago, about how we need each other. And in football, it's not good to try to be the star. You want to make the team be successful. That's a wonderful thing. So, you've got a heritage like that, where we work with people, and we love people. And thank God for friends. Thank God for friends. Thank God. And I see you playing with our neighbor's daughter about your age. I think that's great. You got a good friend. Even with this virus going around, you're able to go, and there's not much traffic. That's good. And you're building friends. And some of those will be with you all your life. And sometimes when you're having a tough time, they'll be there with you.
What was your family life like?
Well, we had a good family. My father was a minister. My mother grew up Catholic, And she became a Christian, an evangelical, born again, whatever people want to say, under my father's preaching. She was a French speaker, and the Catholics in South Louisiana were ethnic. I mean, it was a tight community. When my father went in there, it was very controversial. My mother's people historically had been Lutheran, so I think they were a little bit more open. They had a home meeting. I had an uncle that had a home meeting. I remember that when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And as I said, they all spoke French. My first words were in French. Of course, some people wouldn't call what they spoke French, but we called it French. And it was an unusual life, one I'm really thankful for. And mother was one of 12 children, so it left an imprint on me. And I still go back there, South Louisiana, and then when we moved to Alabama, of course, things changed. It was a farming community, agrarian, and as I said, we lived next door to the church, and we had church all the time, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and then other events, vacation Bible school. And that was good, and I needed all of it. But I've developed friends, good friends, some still my friend. So I'm really thankful for where I grew up. And my parents were kind of strict. And of course, being a preacher's kid, I got a little more of it than most people did. My son, Stephen, says all preacher's kids need therapy. I can believe it. I did. The reason is, well, like I said, we were next door to the church. So everybody knew if you were home, and they would just drop in, and on Sunday they'd come use our bathroom, or, I mean, it was just like part of the church building almost. And you kind of get tired of that a little bit. And the part I didn't like was, as I grew up, especially when I got to be in my teens, was the pressure that came with being a preacher's kid. My parents would say, my friends did something, and I said, well, I wanted to go with them. They said, no, you can't do it. They can do it, but you can't. And of course, that built up a little bit of rebel in me. And there were times when I did things they didn't know about, and I had more anger in me than I realized. I got in fights and a few things like that. And I like to race cars, and I'm just glad to be alive, tell you the honest truth. but it was a good time to grow up in the 1950s, and they're called Happy Days. There used to be a TV program called Happy Days, because I think the war was over, the economy was doing pretty good, there wasn't a lot of violence, and so they were just starting to have gangs. Now, I won't go too far with that, but that was a kind of a foretaste of the very late 50s and 60s. But, given everything, I'm glad I grew up then. I enjoyed my youth, I think.
What made you decide to become a minister?
Ooh. I'll tell you, that was the hardest decision I ever made. Because, as I said, I didn't like being a preacher's kid. I loved my father. He was a good man. I loved my mother. I had a brother and sister. We were all close. We had a close family. But I didn't like the pressure. And ever since I was a very little boy, people would say, I bet you're going to be like your daddy. You're going to grow up to be a preacher. And they'd pat me on the head, and I wanted to bite their hands. I don't want people telling me what I got to do. And so I kept it undercover pretty much, but I had a lot of resentment. And then the Lord began to deal with me when I was 16 and called me to the ministry. I knew in my heart, I didn't tell anybody and I didn't want to tell anybody, and I was hoping it wasn't true, but I had this feeling. Besides that, I was a talker, you know. And unfortunately, that's not always good. But I got into public speaking when I was 17, and I won a lot of contests and had a lot of opportunities. But I didn't connect that with being a preacher. 17 was about the worst year of my life. What convinced me was God scared me, because I found out what I could do and what might happen to me, and it wasn't good. We had a little gang. We did some things we shouldn't have done. I raced cars, and not far from here is Cottage Hill Road. Now, Cottage Hill Road's 4-lane now, but it was 2-lane then. And there is, as you come down Cottage Hill Road going out west, a very sharp turn. In fact, there's 2 of them. And in those days, it was just a 2-lane road, and it was almost a 90-degree turn. And there was a big ditch there, and the power line right away went straight. The road turned, but the power lines went. It was at night. My lights didn't pick up the curve. It just looked like the road went, and I was racing a guy. And I was going as fast as that car would go downhill, and he was behind me. And suddenly I realized the road did that. If I had gone straight, I would have hit a ditch bank, big ditch, or trees. It would have killed me. And it's impossible to do a curve like that going that fast. But I did the only thing I could do. I tried to make the curve. Now, in those days, cars didn't have seat belts, and you know, and I was crazy. I really was being stupid. And so as I made the curve, my car got up on 2 wheels like that. And when I get scared, I laugh. I think, crazy thoughts. And I thought I could strike a match on the road. The guy behind me said I could see the whole underside of your car. Finally, the car leveled back down, and I pulled over. I couldn't work the pedals. I couldn't drive. It scared me so bad. Now I'm 17, and you know, I'm thinking I'm big and bad, and I can do anything. And suddenly, I realized I should be dead. The guy behind me pulled up beside me, and he was white. He just said, "Oh man, I saw the whole underside of your car." I said, I was in it. And it's like when that car was up like that, the Lord spoke to me and said, "How would you like to be in the ministry?" Oh, me. Well, that wasn't the only time God spoke to me, but He shouted at me that time. And we had a revival meeting not long after that. I was 18, and I was in the choir, and I really shouldn't have been in the choir. I wasn't living that good, but I was fighting, and the Lord spoke to me, and He said, "It's time." So I went forward, and my dad was a pastor, and he said, "Why did you come forward?" I said, "I'm going to give my life to be a minister." He said, "Praise the Lord." And I thought, why? I wasn't happy at all. But I made a commitment, and so I kept it. But you ask me why, I would say I was afraid not to. Now, I knew God had called me. I've never doubted it in my life. I've never thought about not being a minister. But it's not easy. People think, well, you know, when I was growing up, boys would say, well, your dad, he doesn't work. He just gets up and preaches one time a week or something. I said, you have no idea. My dad preached a 9-week revival, morning and night, out in Texas, and had a nervous breakdown. He said, my nerves caught on fire. The stress. I saw my dad stay up at night praying. That's how I learned to pray. I heard them praying. And I knew it was not easy. And people, I told my daddy, I said, if people said to me what they said to you, I'd knock all their teeth out. I didn't mind fighting when I said that. And he said, you don't know what you would say or do. And I knew that was true. You know, something has to die for you to do God's will. But when you do, you come alive. I'm not sorry. I'm happy serving the Lord. But it was not easy to make that decision because I wasn't going to be my own anymore. And I had to put up with stuff I didn't want to put up with, and I knew I wasn't good enough to be. My father was a great man. He had a wonderful person, but I was a rascal. And so I thought I could never be a preacher. I'd wind up fighting somebody, or I'd run off and do something crazy. But God's helped me, and we all have to grow. Well, that's a long way of answering your question. But, you know, I want you to know your heritage. And my God has been good to us. I'm so glad that I said yes, because He's brought me through all kinds of things. Now, I haven't always been right, but He's never stopped loving me or helping me. And you can trust the Lord. He will be faithful to you. Well, Liza, thank you.
Yes, sir.
If anything you want to say, feel free. And it's good having you for this time. And I hope it's something that'll bless your life. And that later on, you'll be able to look at the video and remember all the wise things you said.
Thank you for watching this video. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope you'll share it with friends and family. If you'd like more information on our ministry, you can visit us online, csmpublishing.org. You can also follow our YouTube channel, CSM Publishing. You can like us on Facebook, Charles Simpson Ministries, or you can follow us on Twitter at CSMin Publishing. We thank you again for your time today and look forward to more video installments.